So I'm Padma Achanta. I'm cloud data strategist, and I've been working with SQL Server for more than 12 years now. And my journey with Azure has started a long time before. Besides like Azure and SQL Server, I've been also working on Mongo, Mongo, and Mongo Atlas. And my journey with Postgres also started some time before. Besides this database technologies, I'm also working on the infrastructure as code technologies like Terraform and Ansible, and that journey is going really great. So with that, if you want to reach out to me, I have my LinkedIn profile here. You can always connect with me, and I'm pretty much active in the messages, in LinkedIn messages. And I'm also founder of dbawards.com, where I share some of my experiences there. In the recent past, I haven't put much posts, but I'm sure I'll do it very soon, a couple. With that, today I'm going to provide you details about the deployment of Azure SQL Database and benefits of Azure SQL, cost-saving techniques, role-based access control, and some points to remember. Besides like moving into the slides, I really want to show you more of practicals than going through the slides. So straight away, I'm going to the demo, but all the slides whatever I'm talking is already there in the slides, and I'll share the slides with you with team, and you guys can download at any point of time if it is allowed. Does that make sense? I'll just stop sharing the screen. Yeah. And I will start sharing my Azure account. Let me know. Matt is raising hand. Matt?
Matt, we're saving questions to the end. If you want to put it in the chat space, but the audio and cameras are disabled while she's presenting.
Sure, I'm so sorry. I was just a thumbs up for agreement, not a question.
I see. Okay, yeah, I saw your hand raised, so I thought you had a question. So thank you. So now I'm going to create Azure SQL Database, right? So what exactly Azure SQL Database is? Like, I think like most of you, maybe I can cover some of the basics as well as part of this session. So in Azure, whenever you wanted to provision a database, you have multiple deployment options, right? You have infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, right? So a little bit about infrastructure as a service. Infrastructure as a service, it gives you the basic resources like your CPU, your OS, and the rest is something which falls in your hands. I'm just talking in a pretty much layman language so that everyone understands, even who is new to this to even Azure SQL. So PaaS service is a platform as a service. In platform as a service, you get the basic infrastructure as well as your OS level, and above that is everything. Whatever is the database is something which you have to provision. Platform as a so I told about the infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and now software as a service. Software as a service is like you have everything. All you have to do is just use the service. So probably I can give you a simple example. Infrastructure as a service is like renting a bare apartment. You don't have anything except the walls. You have to build everything, including paint. You have to get your own furniture, everything, right? Platform as a service is like you are renting a furnished apartment. So you have walls, you have furniture. All you have to do is bring your own things and live with it. Software as a service is like you are renting a hotel. You have everything, whatever is needed, just pay and then use the service. So that's a very best example I can give you. So when it comes to Azure SQL, it comes under platform as a service. So today we are going to see how we are building, how we are provisioning Azure SQL Database. And while I'm creating that, I'll show you how we can, what are the cost saving techniques, which I'm majorly focusing on in this session. So I have logged into portal.azure.com and just type Azure SQL. Okay. So we logged in, we got into this page. And before even I go here, if you don't have like an account with Azure, then you can always create one. And if you're having like, if you haven't created one so far, you will definitely get one free service account, or more than one if you're using a different credit card. So you get a free service account and you get like $200 credit by default. So once you are hit the $200 credit, or it's like 1 month. So either of which goes first, then after that, like you have to use pay as you go or go for a different free account. Mine is like a pay as you go service. I don't have, I mean, like my free account is completed. So this is what I'm showing you here. So I'm on the Azure SQL page. So hit on create. You have Azure SQL Database and Azure SQL Database free offer. Let's see what this free offer is. If you see free offer, if you see here, it shows me free offer is applied. So what this free offer is, you get 100,000 vCore seconds and 32 gigabytes of data and 32 gigabytes of backup storage free per month for lifetime for my subscription. Mine is like pay-as-you-go subscription, so I can avail this particular service. So when you're availing free offer, just make a note of few things. If you're availing this free offer, then ensure, I mean, like if you wanted to convert any of your existing databases to this free offer, then that's not possible. So you cannot you can avail this free offer like for any new databases which are falling under 32 gigabytes, but you cannot convert any existing databases if it is like about 32 gigs or like close to 32 gigs to this free offer. Okay. And second thing is, this offer doesn't apply for student accounts. So this is only for either a free subscription or like pay as you go, but not for a student account. So just keep that in mind. So this shows free offer is applied. So I'll go with the normal one. Azure SQL Database. And here my Azure subscription shows as default. I did not create any resource group, so I'm going to create a resource group here. So I'll say RG1, which stands for resource group 1. And here provide the database name. So I will provide Padma WIT. Whenever you're creating database or any resource for that matters, just go through these lines whenever you are creating one. So this gives you a clear picture of what is allowed and what is not allowed. So just make a note of that and create server name. I don't have any servers created, so I'll create a server name. And server name should always be in small letters. I belong to Central US, so I give Central US. And for demo purposes, I'm using SQL authentication, but it is always recommended to go with Microsoft Entra. That gives you the best security. And if you're using SQL authentication, ensure you remember the username and password. Okay, so here our first cost saving technique, whether you want to use a SQL Elastic Pool or no. So first of all, let's try to understand what is SQL Elastic Pool. A SQL Elastic Pool is nothing but it has a pool which can hold a pool of resources. So for instance, you can hold 10 databases in 10 different servers, or you can host all the 10 databases in the same server. Okay, so if you use Elastic Pool, then all the 10 data, so Elastic Pool comes with standard CPU and memory, and all the resources, all the CPU memory resources are shared across all these 10 databases. So for instance, imagine like in your environment, you have like two databases. One database is actively used in the daytime, and one database is actively used during weekends. And like two databases I told, right? One is like during the weekdays, and one is especially during weekends. Or one is used during daytime more, or one is used during nighttime more. When the workload is more during one specific period, and though that workload varies between these two databases, then the best thing you can use is Azure SQL Elastic Pool. Generally, whenever you are not using SQL Elastic Pool, then you are billed per database. But if you are using SQL Elastic Pool, that means like if you're having multiple databases under single pool, then you will be charged per pool. So if you know your workload, and if you know your workload varies, then it's one of the best options is to use is SQL Elastic Pool. That is like one of the cost saving technique. For demo purposes, I'm not using SQL Elastic Pool. I'll go with development environment. And now compute. Let's hit on compute and storage. Here I'm using compute and storage. And here under the service tier, if you hit, you have two types of service tiers, right? One is vCore based purchase model. Service tier where the purchase models are coming in. We have two types of purchase models. One is vCore based, and the second is DTU based. vCore based is nothing but it all, these type under vCore base, we have like again 3 tiers, right? So each tier comes with the number of vCores you are using. And DG is nothing but database transaction unit. So that means your CPU, your memory is bundled to one unit, and it is called DTU. So if you want to increase, if you're using a DTU purchase model, and if you're using if you're like, you wanted to increase specific number of CPUs, then you cannot increase in DTU based purchase model. You have to increase the number of DTUs, not specific to CPU or memory. You cannot increase the capacity of one specific resource. Whereas in vCore, you have that option. So, why you have to use this specific purchase model? It all depends on your requirement. It all depends on your necessity of that particular resource. So under vCore, you have again general, hyperscale, and business critical. As the name indicates, as the number of resources increases, as based on your environment. Like for production, you can definitely, if it comes to vCore for production, you can use hyperscale and business critical as well, depending on how large is your environment and how much speed you are expecting. And same with the DTU based purchase model, right? You have basic, standard, and premium. So basic is for any kind of development purposes. Standard probably you can use up to the stage. Again, it depends on how big is your environment is. And premium definitely for production. So I'll tell you one point in my experience, if you are using a DTU based purchase model for larger environments, that means like you're having your DTUs like 300, 400, something like that. I think it is definitely good to consider vCore based, because vCore based purchase model is it can optimize your cost much better than DTU based if you're going like a premium based or like a standard based DTU models. So you can always validate how much it is costing with VCore and DTU, but if you're using DTU, the more number of DTUs, then VCore based is give you the best price. And generally in DTU based, if you're increasing the number of DTUs, like for instance, you have provisioned your database with like 10 DTUs and you want to increase to 12 DTUs, it's not like something automatic, it's manual process. And when you're also scaling up, that means that, you know, there could be a small outage or blip. I would say at least blip can be expected. Whereas in vCores, it's seamless. You can also automate it. You can use your Terraform scripts, or you can use like your Ansible scripts, or you can automate it. You know, but in DTU based purchase model, the automation is not available. It's manual. And when you're scaling up vCores, it's seamless. So it's still possible, and you need not have any. Generally, there will not be any blips or any outage. From DTU based model, you can switch to vCore based model as well. And this can also happen without any outage. But if you're using vice versa, I don't think that is possible without an outage. So DTU based model always validate 100%, you know, just to be sure like how much it is costing you with DTU based and how much it is costing you vCore based. And vCore based is much customized than DTU based purchase model. So for now, I'm going with vCore general purposes. So the default is serverless. So here, if you see the compute tier, we have two options. One is provisioned, the other is serverless, right? So provisioned. So provisioned here, compute resources are already pre-allocated. So that means like, you know, your environment, and you know that your environment is definitely going to use so many compute resources every time, then go for provisioned. But if you know your environment, and you know that, hey, my load will not be the same all the time, so my workload will be more, I mean, like the resources will be utilized more during first half of the day, and during the second half of the day it's less, and during nighttime it's none. You know, if you know that your environment is behaving like this, if your environment is like this, then go with serverless. Serverless is much cost, it gives you a better cost than provisioned. Again, it all depends on your environment, right? I'll also tell you some more techniques where you can save even in provision as well. But I'm just talking in general that, you know, that's because provision is built per hour based on the number of vCores configured. It's not used. Doesn't matter whether the number of vCores are used or not. If your environment is configured, if your SQL database is configured with number of vCores, then per hour it is costed as per the number of vCores configured. Whereas in serverless, it is cost based on the number of vCores used, not configured, right? So you like, doesn't matter even if you have like 64, even if only 2 vCores are being used, then under serverless you will be charged only for 2 vCores, but that cost is per second, not per hour, unlike provisioned. So while we are under compute tier provision, I'll show you some more options here. So here, if you want to change the configuration, you can change the configuration. So you have standard, premium series, all this. So you can select based on your requirement. And you have one cost saving technique here, which is like, you know, save money. If you already have your license, your SQL Server license on-prem, then you can use that license as a Azure hybrid benefit. So if you use that one, then your price will be reduced almost like to 50%, I would say. So for instance, here, already have a SQL Server license, save the license with your already own, save with the license you already own with Azure SQL with Azure hybrid benefit. Actual savings may vary based on the region and performance tier. So initially the default answer is no, and as soon as I hit yes, then you see this from 418 change, it came to 272. I would say it's like almost close to 50% has been saved. The price has been saved. So keep that in mind if you have something on-prem. I'm sure like most of all, unless like our startup companies who are directly going to unless any companies who are directly provisioning their databases in Azure, if someone is actually migrating from on-prem to Azure, most of the existing companies, then for sure like they will have on-prem license as well, unless like someone actually have moved all their workloads to Azure, then that's a different scenario. So if you're giving yes, then confirm your license and you can hit next. And if you want to increase your vCores, you can do like this, or you can also provide here number. And you can also increase database max size, data max size, you can increase it here. For now, I'm leaving things to minimal. And would you like to make your database zone redundant? Generally, zone redundant is nothing but if you how you want your database to be highly available, your database backup to be highly available. So for instance, like I'm in central US, and if I don't want to risk my database, like if my data center goes down, I wanted my database backup to be also available in a different location, so that if something goes wrong in my data center, I can bring the database up from a different data center. So that's what the database redundancy is. Like you want to have your database copy in multiple locations, that is redundancy. So based on your requirement, you can select whether you want redundancy or not. Again, under the redundancy, you have like 4 options. You can select anything you like based on your requirement. So for now, I give no. And before I hit apply, I would like to show you options in serverless. As I said, so when I hit provisioned, even if I hit yes, this shows me, even if I hit the hybrid benefit yes, this shows me the cost of $266.86 in USD. And when I hit serverless, by default, the price is very less because it is not charged it's not like pre-allocated resource, not charged for pre-allocated resources. It is charged based on the usage. I haven't created the database yet, Azure SQL Database, and also my database is not in use yet. But so far it is showing me the estimated cost like this. But when I use serverless, and once my database is created, once my usage is increased, this number varies. So for demo purposes, I'm going to everything to minimal. So under serverless, I'll show you one cost saving technique, which is auto pause. So auto pause delay. So what this exactly means is, as we already know, that compute resources are auto-scaled and built per second based on the number of vCores used. So as I said before, if you know that your particular database is not used during daytime, or like after a few hours, then as soon as you enable auto pause, that means your database will go to pause state after so many days. I mean, you have a customization here when you want the auto pause to be enabled, that is after so many days you want, or so many hours, or so many minutes, or the combination of all 3. So for instance, if I leave the default of 1 hour, after this demo, imagine I haven't used the database for like almost 3 days, or almost like a few hours, my particular database will go to pause state. So pause stage is nothing but, it's not like something you need to panic, hey, my database will be in a disabled mode, not something like that. That means it is in a rest mode. So until like an active connection comes to it, again, it becomes an active state. So because I'm creating it new database now, I don't think I can show you how the status looks when it is paused, but generally it show you clearly the status is active or paused. I'll show you once we have the database created, how it, where it shows as the active state. So again, it's the same, like if you want the database to be zone redundant for database purposes, for demo purposes, I'm giving it no. And so I'm leaving things up for default, like I'm going with serverless because I don't want this to be costed more for demo, because mine is pay as you go. And at any point of time, not only just Azure SQL Database, whenever you're creating any resource in any cloud, ensure that based on your selections, your price changes. So always keep an eye on the price. I hit apply. So as I mentioned, like here we have locally zone redundant, zero zone redundant, zone redundant, zero geo redundant, and geo zone redundant. We have 4. I'll just go with local. And here is my cost so far. Let me apply this offer. Let me see. Okay. And when I apply the offer, you see some of the options have changed. I've applied the free offer, and let me show you what options have changed. Behavior when free offer limited reach. When free offer limit is reached, that means the auto pause the database until the next month. That means, so as I said, this particular free offer is for every month, right? Every month 32 gigabytes of data and 32 gigabytes of storage. So this particular database will be paused no matter what for next 1 month, for next month until that billing date is reached. And then you will be able to actively use the database. Until then, it is just paused. So I'll hit next. Networking for demo purposes, I'm using the public endpoint, and I want to add my current client IP, but always use private endpoints and make your system very secure and robust. Don't try to use any public endpoints, or don't give access to any IP like 00 So don't give access publicly, because this is a demo purpose and I know that I'll be deleting it very soon. So I'm just giving the public endpoint. I'm leaving the connection policies default and TLS also default. And security. So under security, you have enable Microsoft Defender for SQL. So Microsoft Defender for SQL, this is a really good option if someone is considering to use it. So this is like, you can detect threats well in advance. It has like multiple options. It has like threat detection at every stage, like for instance, if someone is doing development, and under the development, if someone has unknowingly, mistakenly provided passwords in some of their codes, then by using enabling Microsoft Defender for Cloud, you have like different types of you have different options where you can do that. When you enable Microsoft Defender for Cloud, you can detect that particular threat in development phase itself before even you go to production. So this is one of the very coolest options which you can use. That's something which I really liked it, especially with this option. And even you can integrate Microsoft Defender for SQL or Microsoft Defender for Cloud with your GitHub pipelines, with different pipelines, so that whenever you are executing the pipelines, even in the I'm talking still in the development phase, even if it's in the development phase, when you're executing those pipelines, you can detect those threats if there are any threats which are with exposed sensitive data, maybe you can customize like some of the customer codes which you don't want to have exposed to outside world. So those things you can customize and you can have this executed, and those threats are detected well in advance before even it goes to production. This is very, very cool feature. So I'm not enabling ledger or server identity, and I'm leaving the server level key and database level key as default. Secure enclaves also as default. I'm not doing anything with encryption in this demo. So even if you want to use Microsoft Defender for Cloud, it is like it's free for 30 days, and after that it shows like 15 USD per month. So again, based on your usage. There are again multiple options in Defender for Cloud which you can enable that, and that will be charged a bit more. So here, data source. So here you can give you have like 3 options, right? One is either you create everything from scratch, whether you want the database to be created everything from scratch, or if you have, I don't have any backup available, but if you have any backup available from any previous Azure SQL database, you can use that backup. Or you can give, Microsoft has provided a sample backup database that is AdventureWorks LT. So even you can use that. But make a note, if you're using AdventureWorks LT, your previous selections could be overwritten based on this database size. So keep that in mind. Let me see if any of my selections are being overwritten. So I just selected sample for now because I'm using the free tier, and again it's allowed until 32 gigabytes of free storage. None of my selections changed, but if you're not using the free tier, then probably some of your selections will be overwritten. And for this particular database, the collation is default, and that's grayed out because Microsoft is providing this sample database. If I hit none, here you have an option to select your collation, and if you don't want this default collation, then find your collation, and then select whatever collation is required as per your environment. The maintenance window is loading, but generally it shows you during what is the timing of the maintenance. See, system default, it shows like 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. and like you have 2 more options as well. Maintenance window, you can select any of these options based on your requirement. I'm going with sample. Tags. And coming to tags are really, really important. When you start your Azure, in your Azure portal, when you start with 1 resource, 2 resources, it's easy to remember. But as the number of resources increases, it's not really easy to remember. So always have tags, so that like if you have like 5 servers on the dev environment, you tag all the 5 servers on as the environment as dev. So for instance, here I give name as environment. Here I give development. So you give some purposeful name. Maybe you can also provide the application name as well. Like, tags are customizable. You can always add, you can always delete whatever is not needed. So always make use of tags. And then I just hit and create. When I hit create, this is validating. And once the validation is done, the creation will happen. So I think the creation will take like a few minutes. If the deployment is already in progress, the creation will take a few minutes. So meanwhile, when the creation is in progress, I would like to show you, I would like to go to a different page called entra.microsoft.com. So entra.microsoft.com is Microsoft Entra is like Microsoft, is like Azure, is like Active Directory in Windows, right? So It's just like an Active Directory, but Microsoft has named it Entra. It's because it's not just on-prem anymore. You can integrate with not only just Azure, you can integrate with multiple other cloud providers as well. It's like a global location where the integration from multiple cloud providers is also possible. So Microsoft Entra is one unit where you can make all your Active Directory level changes. So I think this is still in progress. Let it happen. And in Microsoft Entra, if you go to home page, here you see your default directory, your tenant ID, what's your primary domain, and who is the global administrator. That's me in my profile. And what is the tenant status, and if there are any recommendations, like any identity score recommendations, this provides you. And here you have like multiple pages here, right? So you can favorite some of your pages. Just hit on star next to it, and that becomes favorites on the top. So here is where you create users. Like if one teammate newly started in your team, here is where you create a new user, new group. I mean, if at all you want to create some AD groups, new groups, and roles and admin privileges is where like this is the page where you create all these things. So for instance, let's go to users and let's create one user. So I hit on create new user, and here it gives me two options. One is create new user, the other is invite external user. So I'm not trying to invite an external user for in this demo, but I'll be creating a new user. So here I give the name WIT 2026 is the user. Display name WIT 2026. So either you can have the password auto-generated, or I will give my own password. Okay, and you ensure like the account is enabled. Otherwise, you will not be able to. Otherwise, the account will be default disabled, and later you will have to enable it. And hit next. And once you hit next, all these values you can provide, and these are not mandatory values as you see, but it is nice to provide because you get the full details of the user. I'm just skipping this for now. And assignments. If you want this user to be added to a specific group, then yes, you can add. I'm adding this particular user to developer groups. And then if you want to add a role, these are like some of the roles which Microsoft is providing you. Like you have two types of roles. One is a built-in role, the other is a custom role. So for custom role, to assign a custom role, you need to have the Microsoft Entra Premium subscription, and mine is not a premium subscription. That means like Microsoft Entra ID Premium P1 or P2. So mine is not that, so I don't think I'll be able to create one, but I'll show you how to create. So I'll just add like a administrator role, built-in role, and then hit next. Just review and create. So this should instantly create you a new user. So my new user is created. Let me refresh this page. So I see like the new user is created, right? So in the same way, if you go to groups, you can create new group in the same way. So how you created the user, in the same way you can create a group. So you can create a security group or Microsoft 365 group. I'm going with security. I'll give the group name as AI admins. I gave some description, and you can assign owners. I'll assign my name as owner, and then add members. I have like multiple, so I think like few I got some defaults here. So, but I'll add DBAs as members and then create. So here you have the role. Here you have the DB groups created. So roles, users, and creation of users and roles are something which we very often use as a DBAs or even as a developers. You will be requesting access for new users and groups even for your application purposes. So this is your go-to page. And even like, if you want your password to be reset, then here is where you can reset your password. If like someone's password is expired or someone's password is logged, here is where you can reset your password. If someone's account has to be recovered, I mean, like as I said, right, missing required license. Mine is not Entra ID Premium P1 subscription, so I will not be able to use, but generally talking. So authentication methods, I think this will be available for me. Right. So by default, so wherever like, your multi-factor authentication, whenever you want to log into your Microsoft account, it gives you, it gives you Microsoft Authenticator pop-up right in your phone, so that has been enabled from this location. So Microsoft Authenticator, it gave yes. So that's the reason you are getting an authentication to your Microsoft Authenticator app. So here in the same way, you have like multiple options here, right? So if you want to get a voice call, then you can enable that. So enable it. Phone calls are not prepaid. Okay, still this is not for me. Okay, this is allowing SMS, like text is allowing me. You can include all users or you can include just selected groups. So I can just say only DBAs, and you can exclude certain users from this particular settings. Like if you want only like one set of groups, like DBAs need to get SMS, not developers, so you can do that inclusion and exclusions and hit save. So when you hit save, here you get SMS as enabled. So whenever it's trying to authenticate, you have this option as well. So this Microsoft Entra is very, very powerful, and you have multiple options here. So always navigate these two pages for get better understanding. I believe our resource is created here. Now go to resource. You see here status shows that this is like Padma WIT is the database name, and server name is WIT 2026.database.windows.net. If you remember, while we were giving the server name, I just gave WIT 2026, and database.windows.net is followed after the creation of the server name. So that is something which we will not give, but that is a default one. So here in the overview page, you see resource group is RG1, status is online, location this, my user subscription, my subscription ID, and what is the pricing tier. I showed here 1 hour of auto pause. If you want to change this, you can change it here. And this is the server name, right? And here the status shows as online. If I don't use this particular database for next 1 hour, that means then this shows the status as paused. It is where you can see whether the database is paused or not. So let me take the server name and go to SSMS. Let me use SQL Server Authentication. Okay. Here is what your Azure database is, and this is the database name, Padma WIT, right? And if you see Padma WIT, I think it shows the tables. Why? Because I have selected to restore from sample database AdventureWorks LT. So the database name is Padma WIT, but all the data is from AdventureWorks WIT. That's the reason we do have table names here. And also, if you see here, you don't see SQL Server Agent. Why? Because Azure SQL Database gives you an experience working with at the database level, not at the server level. So on-prem, whenever you log in on-prem, you will have experience like working at the instance level, right? You will be able to see the server properties, you will be able to change server properties, and also you'll be able to see SQL Server Agent, jobs, all those. But when you're creating Azure SQL Database, that means you're working only at the database level, not at the instance level. So this gives you an experience only working at the database level. Okay, so I did not set up any security yet, and we will do that in a minute. So here, let me go to the server and access control. And here is where, if you want to provide additional access to different users, here is where you can provide additional access. So here is what check. If you want to view your access, then you can hit here, view the access. And the most important thing is role assignments. This is where our role-based access control comes into picture. So under role assignments, if you hit add role assignment, here you can see job function roles and privileged administrator roles. So and if you hit like one job function role, like for instance, let me see. Here you have SQL DB contributor, right? If you want to understand what exactly SQL DB contributor does, then hit on this view and see all the permissions. There are two types of permissions, right? One is actions, second is data actions. That means what you can do at the resource level and what is allowed to do inside the resource. That means inside the resource, what with the data, what is allowed and what is not allowed is what these permission type shows you. If you see actions for SQL DB contributor, you have all these permissions available, which you can do with SQL DB contributor role. If you go to data actions, they shows nothing here, but I think like all the data actions are covered in this. Like, you can select the data, you can delete the data, update the data, all these things. And one interesting thing which I'm going to show you now is the JSON. So here is like SQL DB contributor, and here is the JSON script inside this role-based assignment. If you look this particular JSON clearly, I mean, like if you if you look a little more deeply into this JSON script, here it shows you actions and no actions. What it showed you here, right? What it showed you here, the same thing is written in JSON actions. If you see here, Microsoft dot authorization, I'm taking the first line, Microsoft authorization star read. So how you can read this particular line? This is like this Microsoft is nothing but it's a resource provider, and authorization is the resource type, and later that is what is allowed, the action type. So under Microsoft authorization, you're allowed to read all the resources is what this particular line shows. So if you wanted to, suppose you wanted to give SQL DB contributor role to someone in your organization, but you wanted to restrict certain things as per your company policies, you can take this code and you can customize. So under actions, these are allowed. Not actions, these are not permitted under SQL DB contributor role. So you can customize this role name and give something what is not allowed here. You can, I mean, I cannot edit this because this is a default role, but you can type what is not allowed, you can mention those lines here, and then create a custom role and assign that custom role to your SQL databases resources. In that way, you can restrict your environment. You can restrict access of your resources. So this is very, very useful, and this is definitely one option which you all can try. I will not be able to create one now because mine is not a premium subscription. I mean, like mine is pay as you go, but not the Entra P1, P2 kind of subscription. So I will not be able to do that, but I thought like I would show you because this is one very useful option. So if I hit next, user or group, and again, let me go back to one page. Here, when it comes to roles, you have two kinds of roles. One is built-in and one is custom role. Custom role is something which I just mentioned sometime before, like how you can customize a role. You can create the custom role. I don't have any custom roles here, but you can create one based on your Entra subscription. And all these are the built-in roles. And if you want to give SQL DB contributor, you can give to the selected members. I will give to AI admins. Also, I'll give to DBAs and hit next and review and assign. And that will assign the role to your particular database, to your particular SQL server, and they will be able to access your database. I think like I showed you everything I would like. Let me go to my slides and I will quickly. Here I have all the slides on the purchasing models, DTU key points, vCore key points, whatever I have discussed. And I would like to provide like some points, some takeaways. So you have Azure Copilot. Copilot in Azure is already inbuilt. So if you haven't used it for premium subscriptions, if you haven't used it, please use it. It's really, really helpful. And I told like Azure SQL Database is free with some limitations. And if you would have noticed in my demo, I already showed you like it is free until like 32 gigabytes of storage and data. And it's only once in a month. So just use it. Now I have created one database and I don't think I'll be charged for that. And the default compatibility for this particular database, for any SQL database is 160. 160 is SQL 2025. So the default is 160. We don't have SQL Server agents for SQL database, but Azure Elastic Jobs replaces Azure SQL agents. So you can write separate Elastic Jobs where that will be that can be used as a replacement for Azure SQL agent. And I said like prefer Microsoft Entra ID, which is very robust, very secure for your environment. And configure PITR and LTR. PITR is it's a point in time recovery, and LTR is long term retention. So point in time recovery is like until how much, like it's general, like how much of data loss is what you can your company can bear or your environment can bear. How much point in time recovery is what needed, is what the configuration of point in time recovery. And long term retention, how many months or how many days, how many months, or how many years you wanted to have your database backups to be stored is what the long term retention. So we have like I think like up to 2 for Azure SQL database. I think we have up to 2 years or 3 years, but we definitely have more than a year for long term. No, sorry, I think it's up to 10 years. So long term retention is allowed up to 10 years. I mean, as long you store the cost, you have to pay more for sure. But the allowed is like up to 10 years. And as I mentioned, like don't allow broad IP range like the ones which you saw in the slide, like 0000x0. I mean, that means it's you're opening doors for hackers. I think with that, like here is where all my my complete demo is like from the references and out of my experience. Whatever I have shared is all the references available here. And thank you so much for your time. I'm happy to answer if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Padma. That was really great. I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
If someone is just coming in like as a first timer and trying to explore around, if they watch this video, do you suggest like the settings that you used for the demo would get them started and get them there?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Good. That makes it easy for people,
Correct. Yes.
that are like, I don't
Yeah.
know which to pick, I don't remember. And if I just, pick those things that she
Yeah.
did, that'll get me started. And then I can go back and
Sure.
kind of learn through it.
Yeah, basics are definitely like I did not cover all parts of basics, Christina,
yeah.
for sure, but I
Impossible.
covered just one corner of the basic, but I deep dived in that particular
Yeah.
point.